All righty ho ho. In any tick of the clock, we should be live and free on YouTube. And when that happens, I'll welcome everybody. Sorry, slight delay here because we've had a slight technical hitch on my end, and I've got no idea why or what it was, to be fair, but there you go. Hopefully,
Yeah, I
we're
think we're
over
there,
that.
mate. I think we're
We're
there. I've
there?
got a well, I got a little message saying we're there, so I'm just double checking. I'm just getting in there now, but I think we are. I think we are on.
All right, happy days. Welcome aboard, everyone. It's nice to have you with us. As always, final one for the week, UK session, that is. And yeah, look, interesting week. I'm struggling a bit with direction, and I'd like that to correct itself today. If not, then I have very little interest in trading. But let's see if we can work that out. How about you, Ash? How's the week going, mate?
Well, do you know what? I'm kind of with you on that. I think there may well be just the end. If it feels like kind of like the end dregs of a trend, and it does make it actually quite a tricky environment. As you know, I took a trade last night and we got stopped out as the futures certainly open back up again. But a huge spike on the FTSE. So let me show you my screen. Good morning, Manuel. Let me show you my screen because
Sure.
we do have some things to sort of talk about with the FTSE, and it's probably, in some respects, is a little bit better because it does make things just a little bit safer for us. Now I've been working on
Oh,
something
hang on. I
here.
haven't done this thing for you, have I? My
What did you
goodness.
need to do? Oh, yeah, yeah,
I'll make you a real person rather than a hanger on.
that would be great.
They should be there now.
Fantastic. Okay, so let's share this screen here. So we are, yeah, we edged up in the end yesterday. You know, you can see really, I think it's quite evident really with this, with the way the price action's been. It's quite a tricky trend to kind of take part in, and by the same token, we can't deny that it's definitely moving higher. But we're kind of caught in this box here, and I don't think it's going to get out of it. And you know, the reason I think is interesting is that trying to find the top of the box has proved to be the challenge, which I tried to do overnight last night, and it hasn't worked out at all well. I thought we were getting close in this area to the top end, but all we ended up doing was going another leg higher. But you can't really see it so well on this particular chart, and this is where it's posing a little bit of a challenge for me as well, because the futures look a little bit different to this. But this hanging man here is a little bit negative for the FTSE, but where it becomes a little bit easier in some respects. Good morning, Helen. Where are we at? Good morning, Shukri. How you doing, guys? Alan, how you doing, buddy? Brian. So we've yeah. So it makes it a little bit easier because if we're going to trend this to the downside, it was getting a bit sloppy in this area, and it was a punt, to be fair. You know, yesterday's trade was a punt. I didn't grade it very highly, but it gets a bit easier because it does mean now you can see this. Look at this daily pivot here. Look at where the daily pivot is, and look at the little trend line here on the hourly. Now that is suggesting that if we break through here, the daily pivot will probably be seen. And then all we'd be really looking to do, let me turn on my fancy piece of kit here. Hopefully that's on the right screen. It might not be. No, that's a shame. It's not on the right screen. Okay, I'll have to do the fancy piece of kit later. What it does mean is that if we can get like beyond this point would certainly look like another bounce to the upside. Now we could take that, but what I'd be looking for is this to retest, and that would coincide pretty nicely with that horizontal level. So if we get through, then we can be looking for downside. Now there's no guarantee. I have to say that the trend to the upside has been surprisingly buoyant and surprisingly strong. Given the tensions out with the US and China. And I suppose what I was anticipating is for the market just to hang on for a little while, you know, not kind of not continue to push higher, start to kind of like weaken weaken its excitement to the upside because of the issues. And I thought maybe we would kind of hit a bit of a range, and I was expecting this range to be, yeah, maybe a little bit tight, but be in this area rather than up in this area. But as I say, you can see that there's a bit of a channel here now, which is looking pretty good. There's the channel right there. So that's looking pretty good. Is it Lincoln there? No. That's looking pretty good just for the visual aspect of it. But the market is still buoyant. So for us to kind of trade, to be looking for shorts here is going to be too dangerous. To look for a long, not the worst thing in the world. I've got to say, mate, it's not the worst thing in the world to look for the long, but I don't know why. I've just got this this sneaky suspicion that we're clearing people out. And my concern, I suppose, is really Monday. It's not really for this week, and looking for further upside, I think, for the next 2 days is probably the wise thing to do. And if we do break down into this area, maybe that's still what we do. I don't know. But let's come back to it later. Let's get onto the pound trade. I'll fix my my writing tool and see if it makes things a bit clearer. But so for right now, mate, we're just sitting on it and waiting to see what the next move is. But really, I'd like to see that daily pivot. That's the point that I would get a little bit more. My attention will sit up a little bit. But until we see that daily pivot, can't really do a whole bunch.
Rightio, I'm hoping the daily pivot's going to save me, and I'll share that with you in just a tick. But let's get on to the pound trade. We have got a range of 3 bars today. This one, and this one. Actually, I think this one's a bit lower. So we use the low of that bar and the high of that bar. The high of that bar is 122.812. We'll round it up to 122.82. And we'll add 15 pips to that and go 122.97. So that will be our buy entry, 122.97. And our stop loss will be 10 pips underneath that bar. That bar's low is 1.22484. We'll round that down to 1.2248. And we will then take 10 pips off it. And that makes our stop loss for the buy 1.2238. It's also the entry for the sell, 1.2238, and the stop loss is 1.2297. Okay, so that is the position. I better place those trades, which I forgot to do and only did at the last minute yesterday. Pending order buy stop at 1.2297. Well, I'm in the dark here. And my keypad's not alight for some reason. And the stop loss is 1.2238. Okay, so that's the buy order sorted. And now the sell. Level 1.2238. And the stop loss is 1.2297. Okay, there is today's trade. Very quickly through yesterday. We'll have a look at that. And here's what happened. That was the 9 o'clock bar, was it not? Yes, it was. So our range yesterday was that bar alone because it was the high and low of the range. We got entered short at around about the same level, I think. Pretty close to there anyway. And that was pretty much the best look that we got before taken out. And then bang, we got taken out by the barest possible margin too. I think it was only a pip or something in it. And that's sad because well, that would have been nice to grab, that little run down there. Anyway, we did get a trail and didn't lose the whole lot. So we got taken in here. Then we had a bounce. Then we had 2 seller bars, stop loss to here. Then we had another 2 seller bars, stop loss to here. And that was as good as it got because it then went chunk and then it went boing. If those sound effects aren't appealing, then I understand why. So we got a result of, what did we have? We lost 0.4% yesterday on that trade, and we are now currently 0.37 to the good. Seems a lot of hard work for 0.37 after all that time. But I guess the one thing is it's positive and we've added no filters to it yet. So well, there's plenty to work on. Now, I did have a question here from Brian. Hey, Jeff, your previous reference to the FinViz website to have an idea of currency strength, how much does it influence your decision to enter a trade that you have analyzed technically? Great question. And minimal, Brian. I'd say 10%, 15%, something like that, if anything. And what I generally look for on FinViz, and I haven't even got it open at the moment. Oh, yes, I have. What I'm generally looking for are polar opposites, so the highest and lowest. That doesn't necessarily mean that I will trade the highest versus the lowest. I may look at that and I'll have a look at the chart and see if they're at extremes. And if they're at extremes, then I flip that on its head and go, well, maybe they're going to come together. And if I can find a way for that to happen and it suits my analysis, as you just said, then that probably does play a part. In particular, towards the end of the month, where we do find that those sad stories or the currencies that have performed poorly, and so the bottom of the range and the ones that have performed very well against the US dollar, let's make that the top of the range, may tend to just ease off the pedal. People taking profit on the big ones, and probably people maybe just buying up on the other ones. So there's kind of something there in the next day or so that I will be looking at along those lines. But it only is a factor after analysis. Analysis comes first for me. So I hope that answers your question. Let's go back to the pound. What would we be looking to do with the pound today if we were going to trade it other than the breakout trade? Yeah, look, not that easy. The weekly chart is still telling me that we're in kind of a bearish mode, big bearish bar there. Struggled last week to get beyond the halfway point of that one. We're trying again this week to get back into positive territory, but again, it's a struggle. And you can see that we've done a lot of work, trying. Monthly pivot just seems a bridge too far at the moment for the pound. And on this chart, you've got to be thinking, ain't too confident of this going any higher. At the same time, whilst the candle is bullish, I suppose you've got to give them an opportunity to prove their worth. It's not one that I would want to be trading, looking at that weekly chart. But the daily chart is a little bit different. And it does give me the indication that these bulls may have a case to get to the monthly pivot, because we have come back inside the range. We've dipped out of it again, but then a very strong bar on Tuesday. The reply yesterday wasn't that spectacular. And you can see that the daily pivot today is pretty much where the candle closed yesterday. Interesting. That's not the worst case scenario I could find for a trade, to be fair. Let me see what the 4-hour looks like. Yeah. Interesting. That's a clean break and retest of that trade line and a refusal to go to the bottom of the range. This is not so dusty. How do I find a way in here? Is the question. That doesn't look too great. That does. Okay. What's the time? 11 past. Yeah. I don't trade the first bar of London. But that looks really nice. Should I break my rule, Ash? Ash is, I can hear him shaking his head over there. He's saying, don't do it, don't do it.
What are we looking at? Sorry, mate.
I'm looking at this break and retest of the daily pivot after a higher low after we've come back inside the range. It really is a decent old setup.
Are you looking for a short or a long?
No, a long. It requires me to break my rules, and I'm not a fan of that, I've got to say.
Well,
but I'll tell you guys, if you haven't got that rule, there's a clear potential entry here for me, and that is the break and retest of the daily pivot. So, you slip your entry above the high here. It is the high of the day, but it is a new high. So we're putting a new high. Once we've got a new high, that's okay. But if the high of the day was here, we wouldn't trade into it. So we're trading through the high of the day, if you understand what I'm saying. So break and retest, your entry, you get a few pips above there if you wanted to, if you want to take that trade. And you could trade the stop loss under here, or you could put the stop loss under here, or if you want to be a little bit more conservative, you can slip it underneath the swing. I'll wait on it, and that may well be something that I won't regret it because I'm playing by my rules, but it may be something that just slips away from me. There'll be another opportunity if it does bob up. But yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, well, so the rule is that you don't play the first hour, right?
The first bar of London session, so the first 30-minute candle, basically. Yeah. I'm good to go after that. Now, if this is still down here somewhere, then I can probably place the order. So we'll see how that pans out. I'll be certainly going back to it. What else is happening? Euro. There's the euro, and it sits. I'm going to get rid of the triangle because it's probably confusing the issue. Go away. That should be a bit clearer for you now, where we've got this range sitting here, and we've been in it since COVID-19 phase 1 and 2.5 actually settled down, and all that volatility that we went through in the first phase of COVID has calmed down, and that's why we're seeing this range. We broke through the top of it, of course. That was yesterday, and not for the first time, because we've been here once, twice, 3 times, 4 times before. This has got a little hint of Three Little Indians to me, and for that reason, I am a bear. But to trade it, I need to see price get back underneath the high of the range, and then retest the high of the range. Confluence there with the daily pivot as well. So if that were to come into here today, and then tomorrow's bar goes to there, I've got to wait till Monday to trade it. That's okay. But we might get a better chance on, let's say, the 4-hour chart, where we'd be looking for exactly the same thing to occur. So if price were to get back under here now and then put in a lower high at the confluence area of daily pivot in the top of the range, then that would necessitate me to trade euro dollar short. And I'd be okay with that. I don't have a problem. My bias for the dollar gives me a bit of an issue with it, but the technical situation there would dictate that I would have to take that position. Dollar yen, actually, let's go to the smaller time frames, which is where we trade mostly during this session anyway, and see if it's possible to take a position earlier than that. Don't really have a low there for me, so I don't have a trade line available at that point. I do have one forming, however, on the high side. So that one there does add a little bit of interest for me. So break here, hit the highs, back underneath the trade line, retest it, And then if I got an entry about there somewhere, that would be pretty good. We'd have to take profit before the low of the day. And then we'd be free to go back into the range, if you like. Depends on the candle size as to what I would like to see. So if we got a, let's say, a 12 pip risk, we could take a 12 pip reward, maybe a 10 pip, reward as our first take profit. And then I'd probably look to close most of that position at the daily pivot, maybe leave a little bit open in case it snuck through. And then on the bigger picture or the bigger time frame, look for that break and retest. That's probably where I'll be looking on euro dollar throughout this sesh. Dollar yen, gee, it's hard to catch. We tried to catch this, as you know, that order, and I know some of you got in earlier, and we did apologize for that yesterday. I have to cancel this now, of course. It's expired, so it has to go. But I'm going to leave the label there because I think I'm going to be using it again in the not too distant future. So I'll just take the numbers away and wait my turn on dollar yen. Still a bear, and you can see where we are. We're at the monthly pivot, the daily pivot, the weekly pivot. Throw anything in there you like. That's where we are. And it's like, what, 10 green bottles sitting on a wall there, right? Isn't it? You just feel like you could get your BB gun out and go bang, 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 bang. When does that change? That's the big question. And as always, I'd like to see a trade off resistance rather than support. So I'd like to see it poke its head up here again, and then we can try and knock it over as we come back into the range. That would be my hope. Very difficult to take a trade when you've got a situation like that. This is the daily chart. Don't forget, every single day we've just hung around there and done very, very little. And you can see that in all of these crossroads that I've got going on here. I think I can actually take the descending channel away and leave us with the ascending channel, and we're pretty much near the top of. That's what I'd like to see. Get up here, then come back down and retest. Very difficult to trade at the moment because of that very strong consolidation area. Aussie came off a bit yesterday, did it not? And goodness me, had I taken a positional trade on that, if I was a limit order person, then I would have got this to the absolute pip, because 66.75 was my target for the long, which we got out of course, well before then. I do like the fact that we are testing the daily pivot, and we're really giving it a good old test. But that's probably an issue in itself, because we're giving it so much attention. Maybe we're hanging in there for the day. Maybe we're not going too far at all. And after a big move the previous day, that wouldn't be that much of a surprise, I don't believe. The interesting part about this is I'm hearing whispers around the place that China is considering putting tariffs on coal and potentially iron ore. Now, I said this last week and the week before, and probably the week before that, when they started putting tariffs on our beef and then our barley. And I didn't think either one of those was substantial enough to make the Aussie crash. So I thought it would hold up, and it did that. But if they start talking coal and iron ore, then the Aussie won't be anywhere near the 60 cents. It'll be down in the 50s. So keep your eye on that. It's rumor at the moment, certainly no substance to it as far as I'm aware. Ash, you may have heard more than that, but I haven't heard any more than that. It's just a rumor at this point in time. But believe me, if they do go that way, the Aussie will be in deep SH1T without question. Pound, we've been through. Dollar CAD. Look, I am super bullish, bearish, sorry, on dollar CAD. But gee whiz, look at that. Could have traded that bar right there. Sound asleep, me at that time, of course. And to be honest, or to be fair, price is struggling to get below this low at the moment. So we may even have an opportunity for the retest here that I was looking for anyway. But gee, I think any rally is a sell here on dollar CAD. I really do, and I'm hoping for that to occur. I can't trade from here. It just doesn't make sense to me to trade at this level. So I do have to wait for a big retracement, and at this point in time, it's not there because we're at the daily pivot. I don't have really the option to trade long at all. If the daily pivot was up here untested, that would change things, but it isn't. So yeah, look, if I've just got fingers crossed here and hope that we get that retracement that I'm looking for. Maybe, yeah, that's a bit too steep, but maybe something up here would be good. Hit this high again, get back underneath the trade line and retest it. That would be interesting if that would set up for me. Dollar Swissy, very much in the same boat as a lot of others. It's just dancing along the monthly pivot here at the moment. The daily pivot has now joined it. And where do you go from here? Really, it's tough to make a call on the 30-minute chart. On the daily chart, you can see that we're just pinching and we keep getting lower highs and we keep getting higher lows. Yes, that will change and it will break out, but timing is everything. Where's it going to go? You probably can have a bias based on, no, I can't have a bias really. If anything, I'm a bull based on the last time we visited the extremities of the range was the bottom, and therefore I'm always looking for that to go to the top. But gee whiz, this would be very, very hard to trade. Dollar Swissy, I'll just leave that alone. The Kiwi versus the US dollar, that's the weekly chart we're looking at. And as you can see, we've had a breakout of the range. We found that's resistance level and have pulled back off it. Daily chart is very clear in that as well. You could have considered taking a short underneath that bar there, but you'd be trading straight into the weekly pivot and the monthly pivot. So that would be a no-go zone for me. If you are looking to trade this long, then would trend traders be in that? I don't know. Probably not. Probably super trend red. I would have thought, but it's toss up. Little break and retest of yesterday's daily pivot that didn't pan out. Little rejection here now of the daily pivot. Little top here on the 4-hour chart. Maybe this is a lower high based on that. If that candle closes just a little bit more bullish than it is now, then I would get interested in it. I'd like to see it close above the daily pivot. And if it were to do that, I would place a short underneath it. So let's keep that very clearly on our watch list, Kiwi US dollar. Let me see the hourly chart as well. Yeah, same thing, isn't it, really? And if you're trading the first candle of London session, you're probably already short that. What I am, sorry. If I was trading the first candle of London session, I probably would have placed an order underneath there. But I don't. And for that reason, I'm not. Yeah. 4-hour. Wait till that closes. And well, I'll come back and have a look at that as well.
Just a little news headline crossing the wires, mate. Just heard that the Beijing are effectively moving forwards with some kind of, I don't really get the full detail on it, but they're passing some sort of legislation which is going to stop interference from any outside influence, i.e., America. The US obviously aren't very happy with the situation over in Hong Kong. And they've talked about maybe putting sanctions on Hong Kong, not treating it like an autonomous area where we've had kind of one nation, two systems over in Hong Kong. Hong Kong has been always given special treatment by the international community and particularly the US. And the sanctions that were imposed on China when the whole thing kicked off a couple of years ago were not sanctions that were imposed on Hong Kong. But they are considering putting sanctions on Hong Kong as well, as part of the tensions. As China kind of go in and almost try and get control of the system in Hong Kong. So those tensions are bubbling. Now this is the reason I'm finding the market so tricky to navigate, because many things just become buying opportunities. You know, many of these little spats become buying opportunities. But when it comes down to a spat between the US and China, it's a big deal, and
It
that
is, yes.
you know, and it's interesting because, you know, the major things that we've seen happen over the last 3 to 5 years are Brexit, which became a huge buying opportunity really for the FTSE 100. The spat a few years ago between China and Hong Kong and America, which wasn't a buying opportunity, and you know, everybody knows about the tensions between Korea and America, and then Iran and America, which you know, uh, very surprisingly got swept under very, very quickly. You know, I don't know what happened really there. Just you know, 1 minute it was there, and literally the next minute it was gone. And we haven't really heard anything else on that. Now, I'm not saying it's gone away, but it certainly went away as far as the markets were concerned very, very quickly. But when it comes down to China and America, as I say, it's a big deal, and it does often start to get people twitchy enough to sell and get out the market. Now we are, you know, questioning the valuation, or I am questioning the valuation of stocks in this particular area. You know, they're way off their highs, but as we know, the economy is in the doldrums. So, you know, do valuations actually start to become a little bit overinflated in this particular area? And if they do, it's something like this which could trigger a bit of a downdraft in the global system. Now, the problem we've got is manyfold in a respect, because this is a developing story. It is a story which we will probably hear what the United States' action is going to be, maybe not until as late as tomorrow. We've got the end of the month coming up, the end of the week coming up, the start of the kind of sell period for global stocks, and it's a crossroads. You know, where we're sitting right now is a crossroads. So, you know, I've been trying to get in for some downside, and it's actually proved to be mistimed. So trying to time this one is so far a bit tricky. So, you know, now I'm going to wait and see if I can get a bit of a clearer technical picture on the charts, and see if the technicals actually don't go so fast that the opportunity is missed, and I think that's the challenge. But I'm still pretty bearish on this, and I don't hear too much in the way of the story, which would seem like the going back to work story that you know, that runs alongside of it. The economy starting back up again will trump it. I you know, for want of a better word, I think that there is possibly more to run with this, and the downside may well be coming. But we still need to hear the US response. All there's been so far is the possibility of action, but they're, you know, the threat of action. But China, you know, China is saying that there will be countermeasures if there is that, you know, that if that action does start to filter through. Now, if that doesn't come, stock market really has got the green light to go. So, so in this particular area, I'm finding it just a little bit tricky to kind of make a case for upside, because I'm a bit concerned. It's a developing story, and it might just come out of nowhere. And even though there won't be a selling setup to get to the point where we get a selling setup, there could be quite a lot of selling. And by the same token, we're missing out on a bit of a chunk of a move to the upside here. So yeah, tricky period right now, mate. Tricky period. I mean, it does suggest that we should probably just sit and wait for a little while, but there are definitely things happening which make this potentially quite an attractive period to try and trade through.
Well, mate, we're just placing an order here. It is pound US dollar.
Oh, brilliant stuff.
We're going in at 122.83. It's a buy. And our stop loss is 122.56. Okay. Now TP1, what's our risk on this? 2283 for 27 pips, right? So yeah, I'd be okay with 122.92. So 9 pips first take profit. And you can remove half of your position at that point. And then we'll look for probably this high up here, just under DR1 as our target, which is, I'll give it to you now if you like. Target's going to be 123.35, which is there. Okie doke. So we're buying here, stop loss here, TP1 at 122.92. I'll put it up here actually. Hang on 2 seconds. I just got to turn the light on. I can't see a bloody thing. There, that's much better. Okay, TP1. $1.2292. Target is 123.35, I think I said. Okay, there you go. So this is completely independent of the breakout trade, of course. Breakout trade is still in vogue. Now, one thing I would caution you guys, do not, hang on, where's the entry? 122.90. Okay, that's all right. You'll be out of risk. You'll be out of harm's way by the time this if the long for the breakout trade kicks in. So there's no problem there. That's all good because you're taking half off, right, and moving your stops 9 pips from entry. So that's the rule on the 30-minute trade. Okay, so if we get TP1 at 122.92, which is a 9 pip gain, we move our stops 9 pips from our entry, which would be 122.74, which is about there somewhere. Yeah, just above the daily pivot. So be prepared for that. If and when that happens, take half off the table at 1.2292 and move your stops to 1.2274. That makes you a free trade, and whatever happens after that is a bonus. And what we're after, of course, because you won't make anything on the first bit. All right, that's about it for me for now, mates. What do you got your end?
Well, let's have a look at the price action so far, and just have a quick check around some of the barometers and what we could be looking at, you know, for the day. I don't think this has the VIX, does it? Which is yeah, they're still a bit lacking on some products here. If you give me this, thank you, mate. Yeah, let's just have a look around the grounds. I mean, the FTSE 100 has opened up now. We're coming into the first half an hour of trade. A little bit of weakness here, but this is a buying area. You can see that this is a buy zone. You know, but this is what making it difficult. I don't see anything to suggest that we should be selling here. That's for sure. But that story is a little bit concerning. But it does appear that we are going to continue to buy into the end of the week until that story does develop. So, you know, anybody wants to take a long here, not the worst long in the world. There's plenty of room to the upside to go and hit the top bar. You know, this is you're only looking at this on a 15, but this is the most telling bar in some respects, and it is this which is which is putting me off really. But if we kind of get onto where and what this is, then it's the gap. You know, if we sort of like looking at this and seeing what technical reason we have to come down from this point, this is what we have. We have the gap. Now it does need to get through that gap really to continue its journey higher. That's really the key. But by the same token, it might well be the gap that that starts the area that we could be looking for downside. So, you know, again, it would be a punt to take a trade here in both directions. So if you trade this long, you're trading right into a very, very significant level, and you're only seeing it on a 15. But if you look at it on some of the longer term timeframes, this is the gap up, and it was rejected quite significantly. You know, we did kind of gap up and gap up to this level and sold off. Now we did continue to sell off, but it did spring back up again. But it's the fact that we gapped up. This is the close of yesterday's bar. Sorry, the close of the midnight bar. So really, when the day opened up, and then this is when the futures market opened up. So there's a big gap between these two, and there was a bit of a sell-off there. So there's a bit of a red flag up here, right on top of that that gap up there. But we don't have a setup for downside. So really, I'm just waiting to see if that setup can establish itself. And I will take it up here. You know, I tried yesterday and it didn't work out, but I will continue to try and take it up here. And this is the thing, we may well break a few eggs trying to do this. Now, if we were to take this trade now, 60 pips isn't the worst in the world, but I just don't think there's enough out there to suggest that that the timing is still quite right. You know, we might actually see this push again into this area up here. What I may consider is the top end of this pattern here for a short. Now that would be a huge punt, but if it came up to that point, I suspect we might well be, and that's a 30 pip stop there. So so I might well take that position there. So 62.27. I'll write it down, and now I'm going to write it in because I might well take it. But what you guys really need to do now, I put a limit order in yesterday, and I wish I hadn't, because you know what we really should be doing is seeing how the market reacts. But let's put this in now. So the order now. The reason I put a limit order in is because I was leaving the show and I wanted to give the levels. But actually, all I'm going to do this time is give you guys the levels, and then you can make your own judgment when it or if it gets to that level. So if it gets up to this point here at 62.25, let's call it, then you're going to have to look at the chart and see whether you like the rejection. If it rejects this area, then I will be taking the trade. Now, what you do will be obviously you know, down to your own counsel, but I'll be taking that trade, and I'm going to give it a 30 pip stop loss. So I'll have it around about 62.55. So there will be, now this is, and I'll write it here. It's just a potential, so possible, let's call it possible entry, and it really is just a possible entry. So we need to look at then, so the entry level will be 62.25 with a stop loss at 62.55. And I will let that one run and see what happens. You know, if that was to come down, if it did weaken there, then I would have a look at it and see if I can get some sort of development out of that particular trade. Now, obviously, you know, that may not happen. We might not get a push into this area, but I quite like the possibility of that. And it looks like, yeah, that looks like what it looks to me. That's what we're looking at. We're looking at this little equidistant channel here. So you can see that that's really what we've got. Let me just see if that's a flag on a longer term time frame. not really. It'd be stretching the friendship to call that a flag. So it really is just a kind of box range. Now, obviously, what might happen instead is that the price action might well break down here, and this is what I was talking about. Might well break down here. We'd be looking at a bounce at the pivot and then to come down. Now, if it was weak enough and that wasn't to happen, then the other thing it might do is just go through the daily pivot. Now you can see that I'm not interested in the long really. I think we're pretty close to an important level. I think there's tension out there which might actually start the downdraft. I think we're at the time of the year where we could start a bit of a drift to the downside as well. So what the other place I would certainly consider is if we came through the daily pivot and then we stretch back up again. Now it would be brilliant if that level matched along the trend line. Now I don't know exactly where it is, but if that was to come onto that level, then that brings the daily pivot into question. That would lead us into it's the US session. It'd be the US session close. So that would be another possibility. You know, we could be looking at the closing point in the US session, but somewhere I think in the area there would also be of interest to me. So I'm looking at kind of three spots really. This is my favored one, and this would be a great add point if it was to break down. So rather than taking profits at any levels, what I would be looking for a longer term move. So that would be a great add point. And I quite like the way Julian describes it. He doesn't really describe it as an add point. He describes it as a new trade. So in some respects, this would be valid up here, and this would be valid up here as an entry, depending on whether it goes down first or up first, which means that if it went up first and then was to come down, this would still be, if you like, what I would look at as a trade in itself. So I'll be looking to potentially add if it was to break down at the daily pivot level, or even the potentially the trend line level. So that's my plan right now, mate. 62.25 would be I suppose a possible entry, and the other possible entry then would be the other entry 2, if you like, would potentially be at 61.44. And stops on that would be dependent on a lower high, but I guess what would that give me? The ideal would be around 61.75, but we can't do that because it'd be likely to test that level, so we couldn't use that. Now, the reason I like that, actually, no, not necessarily. Could maybe go a little bit higher. What I want to try and do is get some sort of midpoint between the two trades. So if that up there was the top, if this was the top, the trade 1, and that was trade 2, a midpoint means that I can double up while putting this one in profit. So that stop would effectively move down while that stop goes up, making this whole thing free for doubling up. So that's what I'm looking at right now, mate. I'm looking at this particular level. I'd really like to see whether I can get a trade up here and take that one to the downside, which looks like it should get up there, and then look to see if I can get another one in here. So that's the current picture, mate. Is certainly no guarantee. So that first trade would have to work out, but I'm willing to take a punt up there with the potential of adding to that and actually getting potentially a decent run. I'll just check if anybody's. Has anybody got any questions on that?
Sorry, I'm chatting away here, and only Angus can hear me because I've had my microphone off. I've got some questions. If you haven't got any, to
just
answer.
one here. So, what is driving the market? Still so much uncertainty, but market rally. Well, what's really driving the market is the fact that the economy is opening back up again. So that's why we're going higher. I think I think what I think that the situation with Hong Kong could put the brakes on things. June could put the brakes on things, but and valuations could put the brakes on things. But I think with the economy potentially opening back up again, people are buying shares. And if you think, if you consider what the prices of some of these shares have been, and they've been so beaten up, nobody's going to get a dividend payment, or very few companies are going to be paying a dividend this year. So there are still dividend stocks out there people are buying, but people are going to get a good price. Now they're not going to get a good price on some of the shares. I mean, some of them have gone already, which is so. I've just been looking through some of the shares that I was interested in before all this happened, and I'm a little bit annoyed at myself that I took my eye off it, because there were some great companies that could have been bought during this. So if we can get one more significant move down, then I'm kind of ready for the next turn. But most of them have taken off. But there are still a few bargains to pick up. People are buying up travel stocks. Can't believe Carnival are going in the direction they're going. But I think they had some report that people are ready to get back into booking cruises by August.
Wow.
So if you think about, it's crazy, isn't it?
Those people, man.
Absolutely, mate. But that they, I can't remember the demand, but Carnival was something crazy, like a demand of 800% higher from when everybody was leaving. So they've got a lot of demand, these companies, which means that people are really planning for next year, because they know that they've got a bargain. If you look to invest for 3 to 5 years in any particular holding, then picking something up down here that you liked before this whole thing happened, if you believe that we are going to get back to normality, is a great price. So that's why the stock market's going up. We probably have missed a bit of a run on some of them, Starmat. Not everything, but on some of them we definitely have. There were some great companies that we could have picked up. Nvidia was one of my favorites. I'm really annoyed at myself that I wasn't watching that while the stocks were falling. The Beyond Meat. What was the other one in that category? Beyond Meat and can't remember, but it's another Beyond Meat. Oh, and Impossible Foods. Both those two, I think, were fantastic opportunities that have been missed opportunities. But there are still some really good ones. I bought some shares in EasyJet. And that was just a few days ago, and they're already up around about 15% from where I bought them. So there are opportunities out there. There are still opportunities out there, and there's a lot of opportunities. Games Workshop was another one I really liked, and I can't believe I missed that one. So there's only a handful, but those handful have really kind of accounted for quite a bit of money that I could have taken advantage of, which I haven't. But there are still opportunities. I think Aston Martin's a really interesting story as well. So I'm looking at shares, and I think that there are some shares out there, and I think it is a stock picker's market at this particular stage. It'd be fantastic to get another proper tank to the downside, and be able to go in and maybe pick up some of those other bigger names that I would have quite liked to have owned. But whether that happens or not, I don't know. So we will see. But there has been a decent move to the upside on some of those really, the stalwarts of the stock market. But some of there are some laggers out there, and I think some banking stocks could be of interest. HSBC interested me before this whole Hong Kong thing happened, but I don't think that one's a decent enough story now. So not so interested in those guys. But there will be another phase, and you just got to figure out what phase are we in. Yes, Sukri, you're bang on, mate. You are bang on. That's why I like them. That is why I like them. I've actually just while Jeff was doing his piece, I was just looking at getting some shares in Aston Martin. So I'm interested in those guys. I mean, the balance sheet is hideous. I had a good look through their balance sheet, and it is ugly. It's a horrible balance sheet. But yes, the guy that has come in now, he looks like he's got a pretty good track record, and also the owner, 25%, the guy that's got 25% stocks, 25% of the company now. He also has a really good background in history, and I think he's probably the guy that sacked the CEO. I do. I will. Robert, but I will trade the currencies. But currencies and gold. You know, the pound and gold will always interest me. But I find the FTSE takes up a lot of my focus. You know, there's so many opportunities for me on the FTSE that it takes up a lot of my focus. So rather than spreading myself thin, I try and do more work in this one area. You know, the FTSE is my kind of specialist subject, if you like. It's the one I know the most about, and it's and I tend not to. I do get caught in it sometimes, but I tend not to get into anything unless I've done the background work on it. So for me to trade something like the Kiwi CAD, then I've got to do a few hours work in before I can really look at it. Unless I just trade the technicals, and I don't love doing that, even though I will do it. I don't love doing that. So I can certainly bring you some technical, things that are technically interesting, and things that I would trade on a technical basis. But the FTSE is my kind of go-to. Bring me some more Shukri. Bring me some more of those stocks. We can check them out in the US session later on.
Pile them on.
Yeah, I'm really interested in the stock market right now. I mean, I think it's quite a good opportunity to pick up some real beaten up ones. Oh no worries, Robert. I mean, the thing is, you have to do what is good for you, and I can't really kind of encourage you specifically to do this, but I can say it works for me, and I think it has for Jeff for many years. If you have a handful of things that you look at and you get intimate with them, then it becomes a lot easier to make decisions on the setups that you get. Now you do you go through phases where you almost have too much information, and eventually you start, weeding out the wheat from the chaff, if you like. I think it's quite good to get intimate with, 3 to 5 products, whether it be an indice or a currency or a commodity. And then you can really look at those ones first and see if there's opportunities. And if there are opportunities, you trade them. And I suppose that's the thing. Right now with the FTSE, there is opportunity. So that's why I'm putting more focus on it. If things were to settle down, then I would go somewhere else. I'd start looking somewhere else. But right now, I do see a lot of opportunity with the FTSE, and I don't want to miss it, so I don't take my eye off it. Moderna. Now that's the things like that, Helena, are the ones that I think we're a bit late on. AstraZeneca is another one. I think we're just a little bit late on those ones because the story's already developed. Now the thing with the Aston Martin thing, we'll look at it later. But if you look at the chart, they've just sacked their CEO and got this new guy in. Now he hasn't turned anything, he hasn't done anything yet. But it's a pretty good speculative play. And Gilead, yeah, all those ones, all of them could have been traded before, I don't know, maybe March started, and maybe, again, just kind of like not fully on the ball with that stuff. But and to be honest, I was looking at certain stocks to trade that would do well in that period. And I didn't even consider some of those ones because I couldn't figure out who was going to get the gig. But actually, we should have just been looking at any medical stocks, and certainly the big guns, definitely AstraZeneca. That was, that's pretty poor to not own AstraZeneca. During this particular period, that was stupid. But and Nvidia as well, stupid. But I picked up Netflix when it started. There was a few that I did pick up because of it, but some of them I think have been a bit, for want of a better word, they've been a bit amateur. I think not getting involved in some of those stocks when it happens was a bit criminal. I think getting kind of caught up in the furor was the issue, and now it's settled down. It's a lot easier to think about them, but we're a bit late on some of the really really big opportunities. But I still think there's opportunities. As I say, I think Aston Martin's an opportunity. EasyJet was an opportunity, so that was well worth taking. And we'll see if there are others that transpire, and they will. They will, and next time we'll be in a better position. So when I hear things about things like Hong Kong, then shorting something like HSBC, they may well have headwinds, LT, but they certainly were a fantastic price when this whole thing kicked off. So that's really what I'm talking about. I think you could go through a list of companies and recognize headwinds that are out there, but I think if you get the kind of moves in the market that we had, there were opportunities all over the place to pick up some companies that, headwinds or not, were cheap. Note down Aston Martin, EasyJet. You might be a little bit Just Eat and Ocado. I think they're interesting as well for maybe some downside. Just Eat, I'm struggling with a little bit. They got a horrible balance sheet, Just Eat, actually, but I'm struggling with a little bit with that one. But Ocado, I don't know why people would continue to use Ocado in the same way if we're lifting lockdown. So that one's a bit different. I'm much more interested in see if we can buy something rather than sell something, to be fair. But I think there are ones out there. Lloyd had a brilliant one, but I couldn't buy anything of it. My broker wouldn't let me. My broker wouldn't let me buy it. It was Luxottica. Luxottica. I can't pronounce it properly. And they make glasses. Their balance sheet is solid. Not particularly exciting in the way that the stock might move in the same way that some of these others could move in percentage terms. It didn't come down that far, but it's a cracking company. So, yeah, and Huawei's another interesting one, Helen. And what the Huawei story is another interesting story, because as we develop this this situation with America, and let's have a look at Luxottica. I don't know why I can't pronounce that, mate. How do you feel about pronouncing that?
I wouldn't have a clue, mate. Where is it? Let me see it.
It's hold on a minute. Why can't I? Everything's frozen up. It hasn't. There we go. Let me write it on the screen for you and see if you can say it. Where are they? If they're down, I'd love to buy some of those. I think they'd be a really good addition to the portfolio. Oh, that's not working out at all. Sorry, I was just frozen up a little bit here. Let's go back in.
What's wrong with Luxottica? It sounds reasonable.
Why can't I say that? Luxottica. I keep putting a t instead of a k. Luxottica. Okay. My mouth just can't seem to handle that one. Anyway, let's have a look. No, they're doing pretty well. They've taken off Luxottica. I would have liked to trade those guys, but it's they've still got some room to the upside. This is the chart of Luxottica. Here we go. That's the chart on Luxottica. They look pretty good, right? I mean, but it's the balance sheet. And I won't get into the balance sheet here and right now, but we can do that another time. But and I wanted to pick them up down here at 105, but I couldn't because my broker wouldn't allow me to trade them. But they look fantastic. They're a really good company, really good company. But I think the issue with these guys is if you look on the monthlies, the highest they're likely to go is 140. Or the highest they were, I should say, is 140. So if we pick them up down here at £1 or something like that, then it's still only really kind of a 40% move to the upside, which is brilliant. Don't get me wrong, it's amazing. But if you look at the likes of EasyJet, Aston Martin, they could go 100 to 200% just to get back to where they were flat again. But still, this has still got potentially another 30% gain to the upside. So that, if this gives us another opportunity, I think this is a decent share to own, to have in the portfolio if you want something solid. And if you look at some aspects of the balance sheet. Why can't I do that? Where are you? Hold on. Oh, that's why. look at the dividends they're paying here. Last one was 2015. €2 for €2 per share, and you know you're kind of watching out with this. But look, I mean, you can just have a look at the balance sheet here, growing. In fact, just look at the big numbers: total assets 52,000, total liability 17,000. So you know the assets way outdo the liabilities just there. You know, so looking at some of these other ones here, the cash doesn't look so good there. Income, turnover continuously growing, 17,000 in turnover, gross profits growing. It may be steadying the ship a little bit, but look at the turnover there. It's just taken off. So there's nothing. I looked through this one in quite a lot of detail, and I didn't see any elephants in that one. It's just a brilliant stock, really good stock. So they look pretty good. And they make glasses frames, and it seems like they've got pretty much the market share on that as well. But anyway, but back to this FTSE. Look at it, quiet as, isn't it? Nothing's really going on. Well, I need 20 pips up to this point here to take a trade short. And have a look at that.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same across the board, mate. There's not a lot going on.
Yeah, pretty quiet right now, isn't it?
Wonder why. Is there anything on? There's nothing on really.
I think people are waiting to hear what's going to go on with Trump and Hong Kong. So it's making us wait. So we've had a look at
I've got a few questions to answer when you're done, mate.
Okay, yeah, you go ahead, mate. You go ahead. I am pretty much done here.
Rightio. Let's shoot back to Emmanuel. Any comment on Aussie pairs? I kind of did earlier. Maybe you weren't. Oh, I think you were there. Yeah, big news. Big rumor coming out of China that, or maybe it isn't coming out of China. Maybe it's coming from somewhere else. But they're intimating that China are about to impose sanctions or tariffs, probably tariffs more than sanctions, on Australian coal and maybe even iron ore. And if that were the case, there's no fact to it at the moment. Otherwise, the Aussie would be down in the 50s, not the 60s right now. Don't necessarily want to trade it against the US dollar though. And I've actually placed an order this morning on Aussie CAD short. I'm actually in that trade, Aussie CAD short, and that's out of the money at the moment. I placed my trade underneath this bar here. So just struggling above that level at the moment. But as you can see, there is no market today. It's just garbage. Absolutely nothing going on. I do like the breakout that we saw yesterday. That's really, really strong. And I did say I'd be looking to sell any rally. Well, I got it on a one bar. You wouldn't call it a big rally, but I think for me, the first opportunity to get in here had to be taken, and I've done that. May regret it, but I think we're in the right direction. Maybe the timing's a little bit out, and if we get a retest here, then I'd certainly be looking to get back into that for sure on Aussie CAD. So I think, pick your poison. The CAD to me has got a little bit of strength to come. It suffered at the hands of the oil price. When the oil price tumbled, so did the CAD, of course. And if oil can just hold up for a while and even rally for a bit, then so can the CAD. And I think the Aussie, because of that rumor, as well as the fact that if you have a look at the Aussie US dollar chart, we have
The oil story is really interesting, mate, because I think that's the other reason the markets are rallying. If we see more downward movement in oil, I think that's another thing that could drive the market lower.
Yep. Wouldn't surprise me. But if you can see that the Aussie's coming off this resistance level that we've spoken about, most often since we started rallying on the Aussie. So I do think we're in need of pullback on the Aussie, regardless of what happens with China. But if China, as I say, do impose those tariffs, then look out. You'll see the Aussie down here somewhere. In fact, it'll be off the chart, and very, very quickly, I would imagine. So yes, I'm a bear, the Aussie, but I want to pick the right currencies to trade it against, and I think the CAD is probably one. I think the Kiwi is another. They tend to travel very, very closely together, the Aussie and the Kiwi. And whilst the Kiwi will suffer a little bit because of trade wars that are going on around the world, they won't suffer near as much as the Aussie does if those tariffs are enforced on Australian coal and iron ore. That, they're a major part of the export out of Australia, and certainly to China is another big number as well. So it's only common sense that the Aussie dollar will tumble if they were to do that. So that's kind of where I'm at with the Aussie. I think it's at resistance and is due to come off anyway. So I'm a little bit bearish on that's kind of short to medium term. I wouldn't say long term yet. I want to see what happens there. If that resolves itself, then long term, I think the Aussie will be okay, because we'll come out of COVID-19 far quicker than a lot of other countries, in my opinion. And as long as those iron ore contracts and coal contracts throw beef and barley and beef, not so much, because Australia can find other markets to unload those products fairly readily. Coal too, I suppose, to a degree, but not so much, because that's a whole chunk of the coal market. The coal export market goes to China. And I know India is a big player there as well. But I think, and I don't know the number that we're actually currently exporting to India. Maybe there is a step in there, but there's going to be a shock. There's no doubt about that. Euro dollar, this one for Chandru. Okay, euro dollar, am I long or short? Is that the question? And I think somebody else asked me that question. And I think it's an excellent question. I've got no idea, frankly. If I look at this chart, I think, okay, the last time that we hit the range that we've been in for the longest time, and that, of course, is the descending channel. I haven't got it on this chart, but it runs. I've drawn it that many times, I should know. It runs through there and through there. So the last time we visited the extremes of this channel was to the low side, which immediately gives me a bullish bias. But gee, we're taking a long, long time to get out of this range that I did point out since the initial reactions to COVID-19, which, were dramatic and volatile. So, yeah, look, I suppose on balance, I'd have to be a little bit on the bullish side, given that I've got a massive penchant to see the US dollar fail. And as I look at the dollar index today, what do I see? I see it's still on a doji formation, a little bit of red about it on the monthly chart, the dollar index. And I can absolutely see if and when the dollar does crumble, that the euro will be a benefactor, or a beneficiary, sorry. And yes, I do expect it to go back to the top of the range at some stage. Maybe now, who knows? I don't see a trade for that purpose at the moment, because we are at the top of the range. We've just broken through it. I'd much rather trade this long from down here, to be fair. So to trade long here for me is pretty much out of the question. But yeah, I suppose medium to long term, call me a euro bull against the dollar. Yep. no drama. What else have we got? Yes, can add filters if we're looking at untested daily. Yes, definitely, Shukri. That's what one thing we'll be looking to do. And as soon as the 3 months is up, I'm going to come back and run these through as a matter of course. I hope we get time in the session to do it. I just want to. We'll go day by day, and see what could have been improved during that period, and hopefully we'll come up with some answers. That is the pound breakout trade, of course, we're talking about. Is it set for a bull run, Shan, or the euro? Well, yeah, I just answered that one, I guess. I'm not looking to trade at Sino at the moment. I want to see something that's a little bit more palatable to me. And this bar that's broken through here on the daily chart doesn't really fill me with a whole lot of confidence. I definitely want to trade it from down here somewhere. I don't want to trade it from there. So I'm not looking to trade it at the moment. Hong Kong, we've done all that. Talked about China. 30-minute rule is up. Can we enter the pound? Okay, so we place that order. I don't know if that's anywhere near entry. I'll have a look at that in a tick. Have a look at Taiwan and Singapore. What an awful idea to limit Hong Kong. Just managed to get. Hi, Lewis. Gee, I'm going back in time here. I think I'm just about done here, mate. I'll have a look at the have a look at the order, see if we've been triggered. Where does Aussie iron ore come from? Mainly Western Australia, yes. Yep. The bottom of the box on Aussie CAD is the weekly pivot. Okay, Aussie CAD. This is not my analysis chart. This box, the box that I've got on my chart, I don't even have the pivots on here. Let me do that. Really? Okay, that didn't work. There we go. Yep, pretty much. Pretty close to it. That was the breakout, that's for sure. So, yep, I'll go along with that. The bottom, and I've got my stop loss above that, of course. So, yep, that's a yes. It clear the rectangle daily on they going out of mind. Who's going out of mind, Chandru? It's above the rectangle daily. Above the, I'm not sure what cross we're talking about there. Euro breakup bandied about Germans tired of bailing Greece, Portugal, and now Spain and Italy as well. Yeah, they'd have to be, Helen, wouldn't they, really? It's been a long time. And I'd say they're absolutely fed up with it. Let's look at the DXY tonight again, Jeff. It's really going somewhere. You mean short, Shukri? You mean short, buddy? That's where I'm hoping. And that's where I'm thinking. But it's struggling to get through that 99 level, that's for sure. But, yep, we can have a look at the DEX, the DXY, the dollar index this evening, absolutely. It will break out. It will eventually, that's for sure. And, yeah, my money's on the downside. Righto, so that is me done. Let's have a look and see if our pound orders have done anything. They've done nothing. We've really got no market here, guys, at all. And don't forget that that if 6 candles expire prior to being triggered into this 30-minute trade, not the breakout trade, the 30-minute trade, cancel the order, because that's far too many candles. It's almost in my mind now to cancel the order, not because it's going in this direction, because it's not going in this direction very far, but because it's going nowhere. And that's always a dangerous time, because if it continues to go nowhere, it could sneak a little bit of nowhere up to here and tip us in and then hang in here for another 16,000 hours. And that will just drive me nuts. Absolutely. and I don't want to be nuts. I'm already halfway there. I don't want to go the rest of the way. So that is me, Ash.
Awesome,
did
mate.
I have anything? That's the only trade I had in the market at the moment, isn't it? I think it is. In this show, anyway. Yep. Right. Yeah, I'm done.
Well, okay, mate. Well, the FTSE is edging towards where I'm interested, and I still really like that 62.25. So there's every chance I'm going to be taking that trade at 62.25 for some downside. So it's edging there now. It's at 62.07 currently. So we're only around about 15 pips away, 15, 17 pips away from where I'm going to be looking for a short.
Do you need the screen or no?
Well, let's have just a quick check of it, because what might happen here is, now, there's two ways for me to do this, and I'll probably choose the first one. I'll have a quick look here and just to make sure that it's not going to go straight through, but I won't wait for a bar necessarily to turn around, but I would suggest it's probably wise to do that. But it does mean that if it gets up to this point here, then what I can do is see if it's going to close, because what's going to break the pattern is if it gets up here and goes through and closes. Sorry, that's a bad line. If it gets up here, goes through there and closes, which means that this stop again doesn't have to come into play. So if it comes here, and I can just see a little bit of price action, which suggests that that this place is holding, then I will take that trade, and then I'll look on this 15-minute time frame to see if it's going to close up here, and maybe risk, I don't know, another 10 pips rather than the 30. So I'm really interested in this number up here, mate. So in the US show we'll see, but if prices come up here by the time the US show started, you will probably find me in this position, as long as it hasn't closed above that area there.
Right, bud. Sounds like a plan. Love it when there's a plan.
Yeah, nothing better. Nothing better than having a plan.
Absolutely. Righto, guys. That is it for the show. That is it for the week. And we would like to thank you once again for your company. We have enjoyed the, well, there's been a lot of inaction, I've got to say. A pretty quiet week, and nothing to write home about. I've got to tell you, I'm currently in negative territory, and I'm hoping today will change that, of course. And if it is the case that I close the week in negative territory, then so be it. It does happen. Not too often, though, we hope. So have a great weekend, everyone. Those of you who will be joining us in the US session, we look forward to that. And hopefully Ash is in that FTSE trade short as a bounce off the top of his channel. And hopefully the pound has done something spectacular as well. See you guys. Ash, when are we coming back?
We'll be back next Monday, mate, and for a proper week next Monday. So start of the month, and then we get a full week next week, which I think will be a little bit easier. I think some of the reasons it's been trickier this week is the shortened week. It's been a bit of a slight headache trying to get things back in again. So we'll be back next Monday. See you all then at 5 to 8.
That's a date. Don't be late. Have a great weekend, guys.